Chapter 19, Segment 2, pages 609 through 617. Language and lateralization. Communication is the transmission of information between individuals. Language is a highly specialized form of communication in which arbitrary symbols or behaviors are assembled and reassembled in almost infinite variety and associated with vast range of things, actions, and concepts. Grammar is a set of rules for language that allows us to assemble and share information on any topic, linking fingers of the past with those of the future. Spatial cognition is an individual's ability to process geometric relationships, to navigate, and to understand the spatial relationships between objects. The right hemisphere plays a crucial role in complex spatial cognition. Cerebral lateralization. Specialization of one cerebral hemisphere for a particular intellectual function. Brain asymmetry and lateralization of function. In the mid-20th century, the left hemisphere was referred to as the dominant hemisphere because of the discovery that the left hemisphere specialized in language. Most researchers have abandoned the idea of cerebral dominance in favor of the idea of hemispheric specialization, or lateralization. This idea implies that some functional systems are connected more to one side of the brain than the others. The functions become lateralized. Almost all types of behavior are better performed by two hemispheres working together, though, than just one working by itself. The left brain is different from the right brain. A person with a defect in one of these genes involved with the body organ asymmetry will develop their organs reversed, a condition called situs inversus. When studying the behavior of healthy individuals, cerebral lateralization of function is hidden by neural connections between the hemispheres because they communicate with each other so quickly and thoroughly that it seems as though they act as one. When studying people with interhemispheric pathways have been disconnected, researchers are better able to understand the functioning of each hemisphere in isolation from the other. Disconnection of the cerebral hemispheres reveals their individual specializations. In the 1940s, small groups of individuals were having surgeries in hopes of relieving their epileptic seizures that they were experiencing. Epileptic activity, they discovered, were spreading from one hemisphere to the other via the corpus callosum, which connects the two hemispheres. They discovered when the corpus callosum was cut, the seizure severity and frequency was reduced in the individuals. Split-brain individual is an individual whose corpus callosum has been severed, inhibiting communication between the left and right brain hemispheres. It was initially believed that these procedures had no impact on brain functioning based on the measures of IQ. But through the study of split-brain cats, it was shown that each hemisphere remained ignorant to what the other hemisphere has learned. In the 1960s, Roger Sperry applied the technique used to study split-brain cats to study split-brain humans. It was discovered that split-brain individuals were able to read and verbally communicate words projected to the left hemisphere via the right visual field, but there were no linguistic capabilities evident, even when the words were directed to the right hemisphere. In most individuals, vocab and grammar are exclusive domain of the left hemisphere. The capabilities of the right hemisphere were then tested by nonverbal means, and it was found that the left hemisphere has no idea what the left hand is doing. In most people, the right hemisphere is specialized for spatial processing information, as well as face perception, processing emotional aspects of language, and for controlling attention. Approximately 1 in 4,000 individuals are born either partially or completely lacking a corpus callosum. Some individuals will demonstrate behavioral symptoms of this callosogenesis, but in general, these individuals lack the neuropsychological changes that were seen in surgically split brain individuals. The developing nervous system compensates for the loss of connections between the two hemispheres, perhaps by strengthening alternative subcortical routes of transmission. The two hemispheres process information differently in most humans. Most research on brain asymmetry focuses on two sensory modalities, hearing and vision. This is because researchers have come up with ways of directing auditory or visual stimuli to mostly one hemisphere. The right advantage. Dichotic presentation is presenting two different stimuli to the ear simultaneously. The goal of this is for the participant to recall both sounds. Most data from these presentations show that right-handed individuals identify verbal stimuli delivered to the right ear more accurately than the stimuli that was simultaneously presented to the left ear. This result is the right ear advantage for verbal information. Approximately 50% of left-handed individuals show a left ear advantage, though. The right ear advantage for verbal stimuli is probably a result of the left hemisphere specialization in language. Visual perception of linguistic stimuli. Tastoscope test. A specialized apparatus is used to present stimuli briefly to either the left or right visual field, and if the exposure is less than 150 milliseconds, the input is received by only one contralateral hemisphere, due to there not being enough time for the eyes to shift their position to fix the stimulus in central vision. Stimuli have preferential access to one hemisphere. Most tastoscope tests confirm the general division of work between the two hemispheres. Verbal stimuli are better understood when they are presented to the right visual field and thus the left hemisphere. Simple visual processing is processed equally by each hemisphere. For example, detection of light, hue, or symbol patterns. The left and right hemispheres differ in their auditory specializations. Anatomical studies of the primary audio cortex in the left and right hemispheres agree with the view that two different roles in audio perception. The planum temporale is an audio region in the superior surface of the temporal lobe. Planum temporale is an audio region of the superior surface of the temporal lobe. In a post-mortem study of the audio cortex, it was found that the planum temporale was larger in the left hemisphere than it was in the right in 65% brain studied. In only 11% of adults was the right side larger. The planum temporale includes pharynx area, which is crucial for speech, so it seems plausible to conclude that the larger left planum temporale is related to the left hemisphere's language specialization. Just as the planum temporale is larger in adults, the same is true for infants, which is further evidence that there is an inborn aspect of cerebral specialization, since infants haven't had any significant experiences with speech yet. The right hemisphere plays a crucial role in perception of music. Music activates the right hemisphere more so than it does the left. Perfect pitch seems to involve the left hemisphere more so than it does the right hemisphere. When the left planum temporale was compared with three groups of individuals, musicians with perfect pitch, musicians without perfect pitch, and non-musicians, it seems that the left planum temporale is larger in musicians with perfect pitch than non-musicians, and musicians without perfect pitch seem to resemble the non-musicians more so than the musicians with perfect pitch. Prosody is the perception of emotional tone of voice aspects of language. This has right hemisphere specialization. Handedness is associated with cerebral lateralization. In ancient cave paintings, people are portrayed holding objects with their right hands, as well as most tools from the Stone Age seem to be shaped for the right hand. Being left-handed used to have a negative connotation attached to it. The Latin word for left hand is sinistra, and it sounds much like the word sinister. Various studies suggest that 10 to 15% of the population is left-handed, which is a significant increase over the generations. This may reflect relaxation in social pressures towards right-handedness and increased acceptance of left-handedness. Handedness may have a genetic component. One gene that may contribute to handedness is LRRTM1, which is associated with glutamate neurotransmitter that is implicated in schizophrenia. This co-occurrence of schizophrenic symptoms in left-handed individuals may have helped give rise to the historical negative view of left-handed individuals. Various studies have found that the form of the gene PCSK6 is associated with right-handedness. PCSK6 plays a role in the development of the left-right axis in mammals, including asymmetrical placement of internal organs. Studies of achievement, ability, and cognitive function in thousands of school-aged children show that left-handed children do not differ from right-handed children on any measure of cognitive performance. The WADA test is a test in which a short, lasting anesthetic is delivered into the carotid artery to determine which cerebral hemisphere principally mediates language. Techniques that allow the study of each hemisphere in isolation reveal that, as in right-handers, language is vested in the left hemisphere and a great majority of left-handers. MRI studies show that asymmetry of the planum temporale is also reduced in left-handed individuals. How did hemispheric asymmetry and specialization evolve? Some scientists believe that hemispheric specialization originated in the differential use of the limbs for many routine tasks. It is thought that the left hemisphere neural specializations needed for programming throwing movements may have been co-opted to control language as well. Other vertebrates, such as toads, walruses, cows, crows, and chimpanzees, show preferences for using one limb or the other in particular behaviors, which suggests that handedness has additional adaptive advantages.